It really makes you stop and think sometimes. What do people actually believe, like deep down? Consider this statistic. It's kind of staggering. Polls are showing over half of American adult, maybe even 75% of younger Americans think intelligent extraterrestrial life is real.
Yeah, it's huge. That level of belief, it's up there with, well, belief in God, actually.
Exactly. Which is why today we're doing a deep dive into DW Pasulka's book, American Cosmic UFOs, Religion, Technology.
Right.
And we should say up front, this isn't your typical, sensational alien stuff.
No, not at all. It's a really serious look at, well, an emerging belief system. And the connections she draws are fascinating: science, tech, even religion, like you said.
So who is DW Pasulka? She's not coming at this as a lifelong UFO hunter, right?
Not exactly, no. She's a professor, religious studies. Her specialty is actually Catholic history and how religion intersects with digital technology.
Okay, so how does that lead to UFOs?
Well, interestingly, it was her earlier work, research on purgatory, believe it or not.
Purgatory?
Yeah. She was digging through historical texts and kept finding these old reports, centuries old, describing strange things in the sky. Glowing lights, disc shapes.
Huh. Like old school UFO reports.
Kind of. And she noticed the parallels, the echoes, with modern accounts. That's what sparked her interest, leading her down this path to investigate contemporary beliefs.
Fascinating. Okay, so our mission today basically is to unpack her main idea.
Which is?
That this belief in UFOs, in non-human intelligence, it's essentially acting like a new kind of religion in America.
Right, an emergent religious form.
And it's not happening in isolation. It's heavily influenced, she argues, by technology and, crucially, by media.
And for a lot of people, it seems to be offering alternative answers, maybe, to those big existential questions, our place in the cosmos, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And she really did the work. How long was the study?
6 years. A 6-year ethnographic study. So she wasn't just reading about it, she was in it.
Wow.
Immersed herself. And the people she connected with. It wasn't just, folks in tinfoil hats.
Right. That's the surprising part.
Yeah, very diverse, accomplished scientists, professionals, entrepreneurs from Silicon Valley even. It really messes with the stereotype of who believes this stuff.
Totally. And, okay, that Silicon Valley angle, that comes up right away, doesn't it, in the preface?
It does. She talks about meeting Jacques Vallée.
Jacques Vallée. I mean, he's a huge name in ufology, but he's also a computer scientist.
Exactly, a respected one. And meeting him there in Silicon Valley, it immediately signals something important.
What's that?
That this investigation isn't just dismissing the phenomenon, it's engaging with serious, rational, successful people who take it very seriously.
Yeah. And Valley himself is kind of a bridge figure, isn't he?
Absolutely. His own work spans science, but also folklore, consciousness studies. He embodies that complex intersection Pasulka explores.
So it sets the stage. We're looking beyond just lights in the sky.
Way beyond. We're looking at belief, meaning, experience, how it all weaves together.
Okay, so before we go deeper, Pasulka defines some key terms we need to get our heads around.
Yeah, that's helpful.
First up, the phenomenon. Why not just say UFO?
Good question. Well, UFO implies an object, right? Unidentified flying object.
Sure.
But the phenomenon, the term she and many she studied prefer, it's broader. It covers all sorts of reported anomalies, sightings, experiences, weird effects, without assuming it's a physical object necessarily, or that it's extraterrestrial.
Ah, okay, so it leaves the door open for different interpretations.
Precisely. It avoids premature conclusions. It acknowledges we might be dealing with something, well, complex.
Yeah.
Maybe something our current boxes don't quite fit.
Got it. Okay, next term, experiencers. That sounds more straightforward.
It is, pretty much.
Yeah.
Just refers to people who report having direct encounters, sightings, interactions, whatever the anomalous experience might be.
Okay, and then there's one from her academic background, hierophany.
Yeah, hierophany. Sounds a bit academic, but it's a really useful concept from religious studies.
Meaning?
It means a manifestation of the sacred, like when the divine breaks through into the ordinary world.
Okay, so how does that apply here?
Pasulka uses it for those moments when this non-human intelligence, whatever it is, seems to reveal itself. Often from the sky, right? Like a divine appearance in older traditions.
Ah, I see. So like a traditional religious vision might be a hierophany.
Exactly. A moment where the sacred shows itself.
She's saying these UFO events can function in a similar way for believers, as moments of sacred revelation.
That's the idea. It highlights the profound meaning these events can hold, almost like religious epiphanies. It's not just seeing something weird, it's potentially experiencing something sacred.
That's That reframes it quite a bit.
Okay.
Okay, one more term. The invisible college.
Right. This one wasn't coined by Pasulka, actually. It came from J. Allen Hynek, the astronomer who worked on Project Blue Book.
Oh, okay. What is it?
It's basically this informal network. Credible people, scientists, academics, professionals who are investigating the phenomenon, but quietly, privately.
Why privately?
Well, fear of ridicule, mostly. Damage to their careers if their interest became public knowledge. It shows there's serious investigation happening, but often behind the scenes because of the stigma.
That stigma is powerful, huh? Even for scientists.
Absolutely. The invisible college really speaks to that pressure.
Okay, got the terms. So, chapter 1, we meet someone, Tyler D.
Yes, Tyler D. Pasulka protects his identity but describes him in detail.
And he's not who you might expect, right?
Definitely not. Highly successful scientist, engineer,
Yeah.
background in biotech, but also aerospace. He actually worked on the space shuttle program.
Wow. Okay. So, a serious guy with serious credentials.
Right. And here's the kicker. Tyler claims his major breakthroughs, his inspirations in biotech, came directly from, well, what he believes is off-planet intelligence.
Oh, okay. That's a big claim.
Huge. And it immediately challenges the stereotype, right? It connects this phenomenon directly to tangible, real-world innovation. That's a core part of the appeal Pasulka identifies.
It's not just belief, it's belief tied to results, in his case.
That's how he sees it, yes. It blurs the line between conventional science and something much more mysterious.
The chapter also describes this wild trip, right? Blindfolded into the desert.
Oh, yeah. With Tyler and another scientist, James, who we meet later, they take Pasulka, blindfolded, out into the New Mexico desert.
To where?
A supposed UFO crash site, one they link to the Roswell incident.
Roswell, okay.
And Pasulka notes how they treat the place. It's almost like sacred ground to them. There's a reverence.
And she makes a comparison to, what was it? The X-Files?
She does. She observes how the whole scene, the vibe, even the landscape, felt like something out of the X-Files.
Why is that significant?
It shows how deeply ingrained these media narratives are. The X-Files, Star Wars later. They provide a kind of script, a framework for understanding the unexplained, even for scientists in the desert.
So the fiction shapes how they perceive the reality, potentially.
It seems to. Media acts as this powerful lens, influencing interpretation, especially when things are ambiguous.
And this desert trip also introduces the idea of artifacts, right? Physical objects.
Yes. The idea that stuff was recovered from these sites, these objects become incredibly important, almost like holy relics for some believers.
Tangible proof.
Or at least tangible anchors for belief. Pasulka notes their devotion to the place, this blend of scientific curiosity and deep belief. The artifact itself, its power, seems more symbolic than strictly scientific, at least in how it functions for them.
Okay. So chapter 2 then focuses on the other scientist from the desert trip, James.
Right. James, or sometimes James Master, another heavyweight professor, leading scientist. He becomes a sort of research partner for Pasulka.
And what does he bring to the table?
He represents the attempt to bring serious, high-level scientific theory into understanding the phenomenon.
How so?
Well, the chapter title is Master of the Multiverse. That gives you a clue.
Ah, okay. So multiverse theory, stuff like that.
Exactly. People like James are drawing on really cutting-edge, sometimes speculative physics and cosmology, multiverse, extra dimensions, information theory to try and explain how these things could be possible.
So it's not just aliens flew here in a spaceship.
No, it's often much more complex. Could it be interdimensional? Could it involve consciousness in ways we don't understand? They're using the language of modern science to build a plausible framework.
Trying to make it fit within some kind of scientific reality, even a weird one.
Precisely. It gives the beliefs an intellectual legitimacy, grounding it in concepts from the scientific frontier. Rather than just anecdotes or folklore, Pasulka really highlights this effort.
Adapting belief to the scientific age, in a way.
Yeah, you could say that. Just like old myths incorporated the knowledge of their time, this belief system is weaving in quantum physics and multiverse ideas.
Okay, interesting. Then chapter 3 shifts focus a bit to media. We meet Scott Brown.
Yes, Scott Brown. He introduces the critical role of media, images, and representation.
What's his deal?
He's a professional videographer, and he's also a UFO believer. But his main thing is analyzing footage, trying to find the real deal, but also, importantly, debunking the fakes.
Ah, the gatekeeper trying to filter the noise.
Kind of. He sees it as a battle for credible evidence in a world flooded with hoaxes, CGI, misinformation. The chapter title sums it up. The war is virtual, The blood is real.
Intense. So he's fighting for authenticity.
Right. And this struggle directly connects to Pasulka's bigger argument about media being this new cultural authority. In the absence of definite proof, what we see, what gets represented credibly, shapes belief.
Technology is both the potential tool for proof and the source of confusion.
Exactly. Video analysis, online sharing, it's a double-edged sword. Brown's work highlights that internal struggle within the community. How do we establish credible evidence in this environment?
A really modern problem. How do you know what's real online, especially with something so out there?
It's a fundamental question, isn't it? Truth and evidence in the digital age.
Yeah. Okay, so that leads into Chapter 4, When Star Wars Became Real. This dives deeper into media's power, right?
Absolutely. Pasulka argues that pop culture Star Wars, the X-Files, you name it, does more than just entertain.
It shapes perception.
Deeply. It gives us archetypes, stories, visuals, a whole vocabulary and framework for thinking about aliens and space and the unknown.
So when someone has a weird experience,
Their mind might unconsciously reach for those familiar templates from movies or TV to make sense of it. It can blur the line between what they saw, what they remember, and what they've absorbed from fiction.
that's kind of wild.
It is. And she points out how actual science, like finding all these exoplanets.
Right, that makes aliens seem more plausible.
Exactly. If he's back into the loop, making the fictional seem more possible. Pasulka's argument is pretty bold. Media is becoming a primary myth maker in our society.
Taking over roles maybe religion used to fill, providing explanations, narratives.
That's the suggestion. Providing powerful images and stories that shape belief, especially when science doesn't have all the answers yet. It fills an explanatory gap.
Okay. Chapter 5 then gets really theoretical, right? The material code.
Yeah, this is where it gets pretty mind-bending. It explores how believers are integrating really advanced scientific ideas.
Like what?
Quantum physics, information theory, simulation theory. This idea that maybe reality itself isn't quite what we think.
How so?
The idea that reality might be fundamentally informational, like an information soup, as she puts it.
Okay.
And that consciousness might not be just a byproduct of the brain, but something more fundamental that can interact with this information field in, well, unconventional ways.
Moving away from the idea of a separate soul, more towards consciousness embedded in reality.
Sort of, yeah. It's an attempt to ground these extraordinary experiences like receiving information, maybe within a framework that feels scientific, or at least pseudo-scientific, drawing on the language of physics and information.
And how does this connect back to someone like Tyler D?
Well, remember, he claimed his inventions came from off-planet intelligence. This model offers a potential mechanism, however speculative. If reality is an information, maybe consciousness can access information streams directly.
Yeah, okay. So it provides a theoretical basis for his claims.
Within their belief system, yes. Pasulka calls it a kind of techno-religion, where cutting-edge science concepts merge with spiritual or existential beliefs.
Science becoming the new metaphysics, almost.
In a way, yeah. Seeking answers in physics that maybe used to be sought in theology.
Right. Chapter 6 then brings it back to the people, the human receiver.
Yes, focusing on the experiencers themselves and their accounts, what do they actually report?
And Pasulka finds patterns.
She does. Striking patterns across different accounts, even from people who seemingly have no connection. This idea keeps coming up. Humans acting like receivers.
Receivers of what? Information. Energy.
It's often described vaguely. Information, insights, sometimes just feelings or energy. But the consistency is what's intriguing.
Suggesting. What? A shared source? A common psychological response?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The book explores possibilities, but doesn't definitively answer. But the patterns are there.
And she draws parallels to older traditions again.
Absolutely. Compares these modern accounts to historical mystical experiences, religious visions, encounters with angels, that sort of thing.
So the form of the experience might change with the times, but the underlying pattern, maybe it's similar.
That's a key point she makes. And she brings in Jacques Vallée again, his observation that the strangest parts of these encounters are often the ones people don't talk about publicly.
Why not?
Fear of sounding crazy, perhaps. Or maybe the experiences are just too weird, too hard to put into words.
And there's that detail about the phenomenon seeming aware.
Yes. That's a really unsettling recurring theme. The feeling that whatever it is, it's aware of the observer, maybe even interacting with them, that challenges the idea of just passively seeing something.
Creepy. Okay, so Chapter 7, Suspended in Space. This sounds like where her Catholic history expertise really clicks in.
It totally does. This is a critical chapter for her argument. She makes direct comparisons between UFO phenomena and stories about Catholic saints.
Saints? How?
She looks at accounts of saints having extraordinary abilities, levitation, bilocation, being in two places at once.
Yeah.
Maybe figures like Saint Teresa of Avila or Maria of Agreda.
Okay.
And she juxtaposes these historical accounts with modern experiencer reports, especially Tyler Dee's narratives.
So comparing saintly miracles to UFO experiences?
Essentially, yes. Suggesting there might be underlying parallels in how humans experience and report extreme, seemingly impossible events, whether framed religiously or technologically.
And Tyler Dee's story takes another turn here, something about Catholicism.
Yeah, the chapter touches on his own spiritual evolution, possibly involving a conversion, maybe to Catholicism, and some connection to Rome or the Vatican.
Which is interesting given Pasulka had research access there herself.
It is. It's a point of convergence that raises methodological questions, which she acknowledges potential bias, how her own background might shape the interpretation, but it's a fascinating link she explores.
Definitely adds another layer. Okay, finally the conclusion. It's called The Artifact. Back to the desert object.
Exactly. She circles back to that piece of material supposedly recovered from the New Mexico site.
The potential proof.
Well, she presents it more as a powerful symbol, a focal point, where all these threads, belief, science, tech, the sacred, seem to meet.
But what about the science? Did they analyze it?
There are claims mentioned, supposedly analysis done by James or Tyler, suggesting unusual, maybe non-terrestrial properties. But the book is light on verifiable details. Who did the analysis, exactly how, where are the peer-reviewed results? That kind of concrete data isn't really presented.
So it functions more like a relic. Its power is symbolic.
That seems to be Pasulka's emphasis in the conclusion. It's a tangible anchor for the belief system, representing that link to the extraordinary, more than it is definitive scientific proof within the book itself.
Okay. And Pasulka herself, where does she land personally?
She states her conviction pretty clearly, we're not alone and it is here.
Right.
But she stresses the book isn't primarily about proving that. It's about understanding the belief system itself, how it works, why it's emerging now, how it functions almost like a religion shaped by our tech-heavy, media-saturated world.
So summing it all up, her argument is that UFO belief isn't just fringe weirdness.
Not at all. It's complex, it's evolving, it taps into deep cultural narratives, our scientific curiosity, our spiritual impulses.
And the involvement of credible people, the media saturation, it makes it hard to just dismiss.
Exactly. It's woven into the fabric of modern American culture in a significant way.
So a final thought then, for you, the learner listening to this, maybe think about how our world, totally wired, soaked in technology, how does that shape what we believe, how we make sense of things we can't explain?
Yeah, are old religious frameworks just fading away, or are they morphing, blending with these newer ways of thinking? And what does that say about us, about that, basic human need for meaning, for connection to something bigger?
What part of this whole deep dive into American cosmic stood out most to you? What felt most surprising or maybe most thought-provoking? Something to chew on.
And hey, if this got you thinking, definitely check out the book itself, DW Pasulka's American Cosmic. See what you make of her arguments, her evidence. As always, dig in and form your own conclusions.